Well, my message to businesses today is to get a good business plan together, come with a great proposition, and go and knock on the door of your bank manager. They've got money to lend to good businesses. Go out there and get it. The focus of the BBA Task Force events is to understand the challenges that banks and businesses face together in the recovery. I think that banks and businesses have to work together to fuel a private sector-led recovery. That much is obvious, because it's one thing to wish it, quite another thing to realise it. I think for a long time, and particularly during the financial crisis, there was a breakdown of trust between banks and their customers. And that's not just businesses, it's retail customers too. And I think that we need to work hard to recreate that relationship of trust. I think events like this help. I think the mentoring scheme that the BBA launched this week help. And of course the survey that the BBA is organising of business attitudes towards banks, which we publish later this month, is another way of helping increase transparency in the nature of that relationship. Now, the Better Business Finance initiatives play a crucial role in building relations similar to those between Lloyds and the Peacock Medical Group. The 5 regional events so far, including today, have brought together nearly 1,000 businesses together with the banks to hear what is changing and to talk about how the banks can help them grow. And there are still 10 more events to happen across the country. Now, there's also been substantial progress on a number of other initiatives from the BBA Business Task Force, including the launch of a micro enterprise lending code, new lending principles for medium and larger businesses, a new transparent appeals process for SMEs refused credit, and the new process to initiate a pre-financing dialogue 12 months before any loan expiry. I also welcome this week's launch of the Business Mentoring Scheme. Through this scheme, the BBA is helping businesses find existing support in their area, as well as providing mentors from the banks themselves. Mentoring can play an important role in building the capacity and confidence in small businesses, especially in tough economic times. Mentors provide an invaluable sounding board for new ideas, a wealth of networks and contacts, and that personal, trusted advice that only comes from peers that have been there and done it for themselves. Now, if that sounds like help that your business would welcome, then I'd urge you to go and look at the web portal. But of course, as well as advice, businesses need credit. Businesses want better access to the funds they need for day-to-day financing, as well as for investment and growth. Our plan for growth, published in March this year, set out our plans to secure a private sector-led recovery. And that recovery will come through export and investment. And I know that here in the North East, exports have grown consistently over the course of the last 4 quarters. Our plan includes plans to reduce the regulatory and tax burden on businesses and entrepreneurs, and invest in skills and infrastructure base as a springboard for private sector growth. But that doesn't mean we can afford to ignore financial services. Indeed, it is only by working with the financial services sector that we can achieve these goals. It's only by healing and restoring the relationship between banks, businesses, and individual consumers that we can drive a sustainable recovery. Now, to support more bank lending, we're also committed to continue the Enterprise Finance Guarantee Scheme for the next 4 years. On the equity side, we're also continuing with the Enterprise Capital Funds, which invest up to £2 million in innovative small companies. And we welcome the commitment from the BBA's task force to the new Business Growth Fund that's now ready to invest in Britain's businesses. This fund will provide up to £2.5 billion in equity investments in tranches of between £2 and £10 million for established businesses with growth potential, and to help them know that debt finance isn't their only option.
I think it's important for businesses to think less tactically and more strategically. I think inevitably coming out of a recession there is a defensive element of how do we survive and cutting back costs and thinking about the next week and the next month, not thinking years ahead. So I think a longer term perspective, which should be encouraged by the banks being willing and ready to and able to lend. So I don't think there's any question here about supply. I think there is a question about the demand. I mean, companies need to be encouraged to actually go to their banks or to go to equity providers and to think about how they're going to build their businesses rather than just survive. Initiatives like this give the banks an opportunity to hear from customers directly and to explain what they do. I think companies equally want to get to know banks, don't feel intimidated by them, go and talk to them, talk to other providers of capital. The Business Growth Fund as an equity provider very much fits into that category. Some of the companies we invest in will be businesses that we meet today and we invest in 3 or 4 years' time.
I think that the government over the course of last year has set public finances on the right track. The actions we've taken to tackle the deficit mean that interest rates are lower than they would have been otherwise. And I think that should send a very clear signal to businesses that they can borrow confidently, they can grow, and we need them to grow. We need to tackle unemployment, we need to tackle youth unemployment, and that does require, I think, businesses to invest and to take advantage of the opportunities that are out there. We export more to Ireland than we do to Brazil, Russia, India and China combined. That strikes me as a huge export opportunity out there for us.
What I've been encouraging ministers to do, wearing my CBI hat, which is a national role on behalf of business, is to encourage ministers to be cheerleaders. I see my job as being a cheerleader, going out, finding examples where people are being ambitious, courageous, and they are taking risks, and encouraging, encourage les autres, really, because you only build confidence by seeing examples of, well, if they can do it, why can't I? You can't tell someone to do it. You can't have a business plan that says do it. You've actually got to take the leap. And so my view is that it's about cheerleading, finding examples, role models, and then supporting. And I think the professional advisor community, including banks, have a strong role to play in advising and coaching business people into feeling that it is achievable, that they can do it, and that they can plan for growth and plan to mitigate the risks.
I think it's only through cooperation and engagement between the banks and businesses, through the work of the task force and the Better Finance initiatives, that we can assure that we're all pulling in the same direction. Events like today are essential to re-establishing confidence and trust between businesses and the financial sector. It's in our collective interest to ensure that there is a strong and stable financial sector, one that serves the interests of consumers, one that delivers a sustainable economic recovery. I welcome the work the task force is doing, and I welcome the progress that has been made to realise this ambition.
Very interesting indeed. I think it's good to get a take from all of the different banks and sort of see how everybody's pulling together and sort of, running with the, what the business community actually wants. For me today to get a good insight into what the banks are available to help with is great.
I'm just starting a business, so I wanted to get a background of where the funding was coming from, or potential funding was coming from, and how you'd access that. But I found the speeches this morning very useful. I've been allocated a business manager, which I found very useful because it does give you a name contact. I've got his mobile number, I can ring him directly. He's very responsive, tends to get back, certainly within 24 hours. And he's certainly responded. I mean, I'm looking currently to have an e-commerce website, and obviously what I'd like to do is extend that to debit cards, credit cards, etc., etc. Put me straight on the World Pay. Within 24 hours, they got back in touch with me. Because I'm a member of the Chamber of Commerce, I've got a discount. So, yeah, very pleased, very happy with the service I'm getting at the moment.